Every day for 3 weeks, my mail vanished. Packages, letters, everything. I thought it was porch pirates, until my hidden camera caught something I could never forget. The person stealing from me wasn't a stranger. It was the HOA president herself, the same woman who claimed to protect the neighborhood. That day, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to call the cops. I was going to expose her on live television. And that's when my quiet neighborhood became front-page news. The letter that never came. It started like any other Thursday morning in Willow Creek, that quiet suburban community where lawns were perfectly trimmed, driveways spotless, and every mailbox looked identical, like soldiers in neat formation. For years, I loved this neighborhood. I had worked hard for this house. 2 decades in IT, long nights coding, saving, sacrificing vacations. Buying this home felt like a symbol of everything I had built. The porch, the maple tree, the small fountain, every part of it reflected peace. Until that one envelope went missing. At first, it seemed small, just a package that never arrived. I waited, checked the tracking, and saw delivered, but the mailbox was empty. I brushed it off, maybe the postman made a mistake. Days turned into weeks. Then, my tax documents disappeared. My HOA notices, too. Every important mail I was supposed to receive never made it. I went to the post office. "We delivered it, sir," the clerk said, tapping the screen. "Maybe check with your HOA mailbox cluster. Sometimes residents misplace the keys, but I hadn't. I was careful. Too careful." Then one evening, while returning from work, I noticed something strange. A faint metallic click near my mailbox. A car had stopped nearby, engine still running. The driver, a woman with short blonde hair and sharp sunglasses, reached into a box that wasn't hers. It was Martha Grant, the HOA president. I froze. The same Martha who smiled during board meetings, who reminded us about lawn height limits and recycling rules. The same woman who sent me warning letters for leaving my trash bins out too long. What was she doing with my mail? At first, I doubted myself. Maybe she was just checking something. But when she drove away and I opened my box, I saw the flap slightly bent, and once again, empty. That night, my wife, Emma, found me pacing the living room. "What's wrong?" she asked. I hesitated. "I think Martha's been taking our mail." She blinked. "The HOA president?" "Yeah, I saw her. I just don't have proof yet." Emma sighed. "You're sure you're not overthinking this? Maybe it's just a delivery mix-up again." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something deep inside told me this wasn't just paranoia. Something about Martha's expression that day, the calculated glance over her shoulder, screamed guilt. So, I set up a camera. It was small, hidden behind the mailbox post, disguised inside a decorative birdhouse. I synced it to my phone and waited. 3 days passed. Nothing. Then, on the 4th evening, around 7:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the app and there she was, Martha again. This time in her HOA uniform vest, glancing around before pulling out my envelope, scanning it, and slipping it into her bag. My heart raced. I felt vindicated and furious. She wasn't just taking random mail. She was stealing mine, but why? I couldn't sleep that night. I watched the video over and over, every frame burned into my mind. The next morning, I printed still shots, timestamps, angles, everything. I called the HOA office, pretending to ask about a landscaping issue. "Oh, Martha's not in today," said the assistant cheerfully. "She's at the city council event downtown." Perfect, I thought. Time to act. I went to the local news station. "Sir, we usually don't take neighborhood disputes," said the receptionist. I showed her the video. Her eyebrows shot up. "That's your HOA president?" "Yes. She's been stealing mail for weeks." Within an hour, a producer came out. "We might want to run this," he said carefully. "It's technically a federal offense. You're okay going on record?" "Absolutely." By that evening, a small crew showed up in my driveway. They wanted a short interview. I told them everything. How the HOA had harassed homeowners for years, how Martha had built an empire of fear through fines and citations. And now she'd gone too far. When the segment aired that night, it exploded online. Local HOA president caught stealing residents' mail on camera. My face was everywhere. Facebook, Reddit, TikTok. People started sending messages, telling similar stories. But I didn't know what was coming next. By the next morning, Martha wasn't just angry, she was dangerous. Retaliation from the HOA, the rules turn against me. The morning after the news aired, Willow Creek didn't feel like home anymore. When I stepped outside to pick up the newspaper, I felt eyes, quiet, watchful eyes, behind drawn curtains and half-open blinds. Neighbors who once waved now turned away. The same people who used to borrow my tools or chat about weather now whispered in hushed tones. I knew why. The video had gone viral. Every local channel replayed the footage. The HOA president, caught red-handed, stealing mail like a petty thief. People were outraged, some laughing, others demanding her resignation. But inside Willow Creek, the atmosphere had changed. It wasn't victory. It was war. By noon, I received the first HOA violation notice in months. Your lawn exceeds the permitted growth by 2.5 inches. Immediate correction required. I stared at it, half amused, half stunned. My lawn was trimmed 2 days ago. Emma had even complimented how neat it looked. But I ignored it, thinking maybe it was automated. 2 days later, another letter came. Exterior decor violation. Unauthorized light fixtures installed on property facade. I looked at the unauthorized fixtures. They were the same porch lights installed when I bought the house, 10 years ago. Emma frowned. They're coming after us. Yeah, I muttered. Martha must have set this in motion before the story broke. But that wasn't it. That evening, when I logged into the HOA portal, I saw something new. My account balance showed $200 in fines. For repeated violations. What the hell? I shouted. Emma came running. You're kidding. No. Look, they've stacked 3 separate fines in 1 week. Lawn, light, trash bin timing. This is insane. You need to call them. I called the HOA office. The receptionist, nervous and robotic, said, Sir, Martha is still acting president pending review. She asked us to enforce all compliance strictly until further notice. Of course she did. Martha might have lost her image on TV, but inside this neighborhood, she was still queen. She knew every bylaw, every technicality, and she was weaponizing them. By week's end, the harassment escalated. HOA inspectors drove by my house twice daily, snapping photos. I got constant emails about community harmony standards. One morning, someone had even thrown my garbage cans onto the lawn, and I got fined for unsightly display of refuse. It was psychological warfare. Emma tried to stay calm. Maybe this will die down once the news fades. But I knew better. Martha wasn't the kind to forgive or forget. I needed to strike back, carefully. One Friday afternoon, I went to the post office again. Sir, the clerk whispered, you might want to know something. That lady, the one from your HOA, came here last week asking for your mail forwarding information. What? Yeah, she claimed to be your assistant. We didn't give it, of course, but she seemed intense. So now she was trying to manipulate the postal system, too. That night, I rechecked my security cameras. To my shock, I noticed a new pattern. Someone had been stopping by at night, pointing what looked like a flashlight toward my porch and car. The timestamps were between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. It wasn't Martha. It was her husband, Gary. He was tall, gray-bearded, always seen jogging around the block. I zoomed in on the footage. His car, the license plate, the same model I'd seen parked outside their home. This was intimidation. Pure and simple. Emma was terrified. We should call the police. I already did, I said, holding up my phone. But they said since it's HOA-related and there's no direct threat, it's a civil matter. Document and report, they said. So that's what I did. Every night I saved clips, took notes, printed screenshots. But Martha wasn't done yet. The next HOA newsletter featured an anonymous letter from the community accusing me of spreading false information, disrespecting leadership, and endangering neighborhood unity. She was turning the whole neighborhood against me, using polished words and fake diplomacy, and it worked. Neighbors started avoiding us. Kids who played basketball in my driveway now crossed the street when passing by. The mail carrier stopped at the end of the block, refusing to deliver directly. I began feeling trapped in my own home. Then came the final straw. A thick envelope arrived in the mail, certified, stamped with HOA's emblem. Inside was a notice of lien. Due to unpaid fines and repeated violations, your property is subject to a pending lien action as per Section 14B of HOA Covenant. $3,600 due immediately. I slammed the table. They're trying to take my house. Emma grabbed the paper, her hands trembling. This is beyond harassment. It's extortion. That night, I sat in the living room surrounded by paperwork, violation notices, screenshots, receipts, and the video clip that started it all. I realized this wasn't about rules anymore. It was about revenge. Martha wanted to break me, to make an example out of me for daring to challenge her authority. So I decided to go public again, but this time not with a short clip. I planned to expose everything: the mail theft, the harassment, the intimidation, the fabricated fines. I reached out to the same news station. The producer, Marcus, remembered me. "You again?" he said, half joking. "Yeah, and it's worse. You need to see what's happening." When I showed him the footage, he whistled. "Damn, this is bigger than mail theft." "This is abuse of power," he leaned back. "You want to go live?" I hesitated, thinking of Emma, of the house, of the community I once loved. Then I said it, steady and cold. "Yes, I want the whole town to know what happens when an HOA becomes a dictatorship." 2 days later, the station scheduled the live segment. But the night before, something happened. A brick crashed through our front window at 2 a.m., Emma screamed. I rushed downstairs, glass everywhere. On the brick, taped tightly, was a note. "Stop talking or we'll make you regret it." The ink was smudged, but I recognized the handwriting. I'd seen it on dozens of HOA letters. Martha's sharp, slanted cursive, that was it. I wasn't scared anymore. I was done being quiet. The next evening, under the bright studio lights, I sat across from the host. Cameras rolled. The world was watching. I told my story again, this time from beginning to end. Every violation, every fine, every threat. The host leaned forward. "Do you believe your HOA president is behind this?" I didn't blink. "I don't believe it." "I know it," the audience gasped. When they aired the full segment, the internet erupted again, louder, angrier. Local authorities got involved. A postal inspector reopened the case. Martha's name trended for 3 days straight. But while the world watched inside Willow Creek, the tension reached breaking point. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. And when I showed up, the room fell silent. Martha sat at the head of the table, pale and tight-lipped. She looked at me. No words, no apology, just pure venom. Then she smiled faintly and said, "You have no idea what you've started." The trap at the HOA meeting, when the HOA called the emergency community meeting, I already knew it wasn't about resolving anything. It was about revenge. Martha's last desperate attempt to destroy what little reputation I had left in Willow Creek. The email invite was cold and formal. Mandatory attendance for all residents. Discussion of recent disturbances caused by a member of the community. They didn't name me, but everyone knew who the member was. That week, my home became a fortress. I double-checked my cameras, installed a door sensor, and kept my phone recording app ready 24/7. Emma tried to reassure me, but I could see the fear in her eyes every time a car slowed in front of our house. "Maybe we should move," she whispered one night. "Not yet," I said. "If we leave now, she wins. I need to finish this for everyone she's bullied." The night of the meeting, the Willow Creek Clubhouse parking lot was packed. Cars lined both sides of the street, headlights cutting through the misty evening air. I stepped out of my car wearing a navy jacket, recorder clipped inside my pocket, phone set to live stream, hidden from plain sight. Emma didn't come. I wanted her safe. As I entered, the chatter stopped. Rows of familiar faces turned my way, some curious, some cold, others just tired of the chaos. At the front, under the bright overhead lights, sat the HOA board. And in the middle, Martha. Her hair was perfectly styled, her pearls glimmered, and that same fake smile stretched across her face like a mask. But her eyes, they were knives. She tapped the microphone. "Let's begin." Martha started with, "Community, unity." She spoke about how the media twisted the truth, how outsiders didn't understand our values. Then she started showing slides, photos of my house, close-ups of my lawn, bins. "Porch lights, this resident," she said, "has repeatedly violated HOA codes and continues to bring unwanted attention to our neighborhood. We must act to preserve our community's image." I could feel everyone's eyes drilling into me. Some shook their heads, others whispered. I raised my hand. "You're showing pictures you took without permission." "That's harassment." Martha smiled sweetly. "Sir, please wait until public comments." I clenched my fists under the table. When it was finally my turn, I walked to the microphone. Every step echoed. My heart pounded, but not from fear. From clarity. "Good evening," I said, scanning the room. "You've all seen Martha's slides, but what you haven't seen is the truth." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the projector, a live link to my saved video folder. The first clip appeared, Martha stealing mail. Gasps filled the room. Then came the footage of her husband shining a flashlight on my property at midnight. Martha's smile faltered. I continued. "You want to talk about violations? Let's talk about legal violations, theft, trespassing, intimidation." The room erupted in whispers. A man from the back shouted, "Is this real?" "Oh, it's real," I said. "And the police are already investigating. You see, this meeting isn't about unity. It's about control." "Martha's control." I turned toward her. "You fined me for everything from porch lights to grass blades, but you never thought someone would fight back. You built this HOA on fear, and now your own rules are exposing you." Her face turned red. She grabbed the mic. "Enough! This is slander!" "No," I said calmly. "This is evidence." I hit play on the final clip, her voice recorded from a private HOA call. "We'll make him regret embarrassing us. We'll bury him in fines." The entire room went silent. You could hear the hum of the ceiling fan. Martha froze, pale, trembling. Then someone from the crowd stood. "I move to suspend the president immediately pending investigation." Another voice echoed, "Seconded." And just like that, everything Martha built crumbled in front of her. But victory didn't taste sweet. Because when I walked out that night, I saw what revenge really looked like. Fear, exhaustion, isolation. Outside the clubhouse, I spotted Martha sitting alone in her car, hands gripping the wheel. When she noticed me, her expression softened for just a second. Not anger, not guilt, but something else. Maybe regret? Then she drove away. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. 2 days later, I received an unexpected visit. Gary, her husband. He stood at my porch awkwardly, hat in hand. "She's gone," he said quietly. "Martha. She resigned yesterday morning. Packed her things and left town." I didn't know what to say. "She wasn't always like this," he murmured. "The HOA gave her power and it consumed her." "I'm sorry for everything she did," I nodded slowly. "I just wanted peace." He looked around the neighborhood, calm now, almost peaceful again. "Maybe now you'll have it." When he left, I sat on the porch for a long time staring at the empty street. The air felt lighter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something unfinished lingered. The next morning, I received one last envelope. No return address. Inside was a single photo of Martha and I from years ago at a community barbecue. Both smiling, unaware of what the future held. On the back, written in that same sharp cursive, "Sometimes the good ones turn bad when no one stops them. You were right to stop me." I sat there, the letter trembling in my hands. For the first time in months, I didn't feel anger. I felt closure. The HOA was restructured, the fines erased, and a new board elected. Willow Creek began healing, but every time I check my mailbox, I still remember how one woman's obsession with control nearly destroyed a neighborhood, and how one moment of truth turned it all around. The aftermath. When the HOA fights back in court, The morning after Martha's resignation, the air in Willow Creek felt different. For the first time in months, I could walk outside without feeling like 1,000 judging eyes were staring through blinds. The silence that once felt suffocating now carried a strange peace. Neighbors who had avoided me before, people who once crossed the street when I walked by, started waving again. Some even smiled. It was over. Or at least I thought it was. I fixed my porch light. I replanted my garden. Emma finally came back home. We had dinner on the deck that night. The first normal evening in forever. "You did it," she said softly. "You stood up to her and you won." I smiled. "We can finally move on." But peace, I learned, doesn't last long in a place built on control. 1 week later, a manila envelope arrived in the mail. For a second, I thought it was another letter from Martha. But this time it wasn't handwritten. It was typed. And it had a law firm's logo stamped in bold at the top. Notice of legal action. The Willow Creek Homeowners Association versus Daniel Harper. Allegations, defamation, harassment, and unauthorized surveillance. My blood ran cold. They were suing me. That night I sat on the couch, letter trembling in my hand. Emma read it twice, then looked at me with disbelief. "This is insane. You have proof of everything." "I know," I said. "But they're counting on one thing. That I'll get tired, scared, and settle." She shook her head. "They don't stop, do they?" "No," I said quietly. "They never do." The legal battle begins within a week. I was sitting in a downtown law office across from my attorney. A calm, sharp-eyed woman named Lisa Monroe. She flipped through the lawsuit pages like they were nothing. "Classic HOA counterattack," she said. "They're not trying to win. They're trying to drain you, financially and emotionally." "I don't care," I said. "I'm not backing down." "They can't keep doing this to people," Lisa smiled faintly. "Good, because this might get ugly." She wasn't exaggerating. The HOA's new interim board filed motions, complaints, and subpoenas, one after another. They wanted my security footage, my financial records, even my social media posts. Online, rumors started spreading. Some neighbors said I was an attention seeker. Others called me a criminal. It was like Martha's ghost was haunting me through paperwork and whispers. The division. Not everyone stood by me. A few neighbors, especially the ones who'd always worshipped Martha, started pulling away. They stopped waving. They sent complaint letters again, this time under new names. It was like the HOA wasn't an organization anymore. It was a virus spreading through the community, infecting people with fear and resentment. But then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I got a knock on my door. It was Derek, the retired firefighter who'd lived 2 doors down for years. He handed me a small flash drive. "You're gonna want this," he said. "What is it?" He looked around, lowering his voice. "Security footage. From my door cam. The night before your last HOA meeting." He hesitated. "You're not the only one Martha was spying on." The discovery. That night, I watched the footage. My hands trembled as the video played. Martha, along with 2 other HOA board members, going house to house at midnight, checking mailboxes, photographing lawns. She wasn't acting alone. It wasn't just about me. It was a system. A hidden network of neighbors feeding her information, and when she fell, they panicked. That flash drive changed everything. I sent the footage to Lisa. Within hours, she called back. This is gold," she said. "We're not defending anymore. We're going on offense." Courtroom showdown. The first court hearing was surreal. The HOA's lawyer stood there in a crisp suit, arguing that I had defamed a respected community leader and illegally spied on private property. Then Lisa stood. Calm, steady, unshaken. "Your Honor," she said, "we have evidence that this respected leader was systematically stealing mail, harassing residents, and violating federal privacy laws." She played Derek's footage, then mine. The judge's eyebrows shot up. The HOA attorney stammered. We were not aware of..." "Of course you weren't," Lisa interrupted. "Because your client destroyed internal communication records after our request for discovery." The room fell silent. The judge leaned forward. "I'm issuing a motion to investigate HOA misconduct. Case adjourned until further notice. It was small, but it was a win. The fallout after that day, the HOA cracked open like a storm-damaged roof. Emails surfaced. Messages leaked. Turns out, Martha had been funneling HOA funds into her personal reimbursement account. Thousands of dollars gone. And guess who was quietly covering it up? The new board, the same people who'd sued me. Local news caught wind of the story. Cameras returned to Willow Creek. This time, not for me. For them. Reporters lined the street as residents shouted questions. The HOA board tried to issue a statement, but it only made things worse. The next week, the entire board resigned, a quiet victory months later. I sat again on my porch, the same spot where everything began. Emma handed me a coffee, and for once we both smiled without tension. No more letters. No more fines. No more fear. A new, smaller HOA was formed, run by actual residents who cared about the neighborhood, not control. They invited me to join the board. I declined. I've had enough of politics for a lifetime, I said, laughing. But as I looked around, at kids playing, neighbors talking again, and mailboxes finally staying locked, I realized something important. Justice isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the peace you feel when truth finally outshines fear. And for the first time since all this began, I finally felt free. The breaking point. The following week, Emily sat in her kitchen staring at the faint reflection of herself in the coffee pot. She hadn't slept well in days. The incident with the mail theft had gone viral beyond her imagination, yet the war with the HOA had only escalated. There were whispers, fake rumors, and even a few anonymous complaints about her property that appeared overnight. But this time, Emily wasn't the same woman who used to silently cry over HOA letters. She had crossed a threshold. Once you expose a lie and survive the consequences, something inside you changes forever. That morning, she received a knock on the door. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, a sweet elderly lady who lived 3 houses down. "Emily, dear," she said softly, "I don't mean to pry, but I saw the news last night. What they did to you was disgraceful." Emily smiled faintly. "Thank you, Mrs. Jensen. It's been overwhelming." Mrs. Jensen handed her a manila envelope. "I thought you should see this. I found it near my mailbox this morning. Inside were photographs, close-ups of Emily's front door, her mailbox, even the packages on her porch." Her heart pounded. Someone had been watching her. "Who would?" she whispered. "I think you know," Mrs. Jensen said grimly. The implication was clear. The HOA president, Linda Cole, had crossed another line. Surveillance? Intimidation? Emily wasn't sure what the goal was, but she knew she wouldn't stay quiet. That evening, Emily called a local journalist she'd met during the earlier coverage. James Turner from Channel 5 News. "James, it's Emily Parker. I think I've got something bigger," she said. He hesitated. "Emily, your story already made headlines." "What do you mean, bigger?" "I mean evidence," she replied, her voice steady. "Linda has been spying on me. I've got photos of my own home, taken from the street. I'm not the only one she's targeting." James's tone sharpened. "Can you send them to me?" She did. Within minutes, he called back. "Emily, these look serious. If this is true, she could be facing criminal charges." Emily exhaled. Then it's time everyone knows who she really is. The next day, Emily's front yard became a gathering spot. Neighbors she barely knew showed up, carrying lawn chairs, coffee, and curiosity. Some came to support her, others to witness the unfolding drama. Linda, furious, stormed down the street with a clipboard in hand. "This is private property," she shouted. "You're violating HOA regulations by hosting an unauthorized assembly." Emily turned to face her, holding her phone up. The camera was already recording. "Hi, Linda," she said sweetly. "You're on live broadcast. Would you like to explain why you've been photographing my home and mail?" Linda froze, eyes wide. "That's a false accusation." Emily tapped her phone screen, projecting the photo of her front door on a portable tablet she'd set up earlier. The crowd murmured. "Then maybe you can explain this," Emily continued. "This was taken 2 nights ago. Same time your car was parked at the corner. A few neighbors gasped. One man muttered, "She's been doing this to others too." James Turner from Channel 5 arrived moments later with his camera crew. The scene turned electric. Linda tried to retreat, but Emily stepped forward. "Not this time," Emily said firmly. "You've harassed families, fined them for nonsense, and now you've invaded privacy. The people deserve to know." The cameraman panned across the crowd as James spoke into his mic. "Live from Maplewood, where HOA tensions have escalated into serious accusations of surveillance and misconduct. Homeowner Emily Parker, who went viral weeks ago, is now confronting her HOA president on camera." Linda tried to snatch the clipboard from her hands, but a neighbor intercepted. "We've had enough of your rules!" someone shouted. The scene turned chaotic. The once quiet suburban street was now filled with camera flashes, reporters and residents finally breaking their silence. Emily's heart raced, but she held her ground. This wasn't just about mail anymore. It was about standing up to unchecked authority. Later that night, the footage aired across the region. The headline read, "HOA president accused of harassment. Viral homeowner strikes back." The internet exploded again. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Most supported Emily. Others debated the power of HOAs. But the real shock came the next morning. The Maplewood HOA board called for an emergency meeting. It was closed door, but someone leaked the audio. Linda's voice trembled through the recording. "They're turning against me. That woman, she's ruining everything." Another board member replied, "No, Linda, you did that yourself." Within 24 hours, Linda Cole was suspended pending investigation. Emily stood on her porch, watching the news vans pull away. The chaos, the noise, the adrenaline. It was over, or so she thought. As she turned to head inside, her phone buzzed. A private message from an unknown number. "You think you've won? But you have no idea how deep this goes." Emily stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. She looked toward the dark end of the street. A black sedan sat parked, engine running, lights off. Her gut twisted. The war wasn't over. It had only entered a new, darker phase. She stepped inside and locked the door. The camera light on her porch flickered once, and then went out. The HOA's secret agenda. The night after the confrontation, the street was eerily quiet. The same neighborhood that once hummed with sprinklers, porch lights, and evening laughter now felt like a set from a suspense movie. Emily sat in her living room with every light off, the only illumination coming from the soft blue glow of her laptop. She replayed the message again. "You think you've won, but you have no idea how deep this goes." Each word felt like a cold whisper crawling up her spine. Who sent it? Was it Linda? Someone on the board, or someone else entirely? Emily opened her neighborhood group chat, normally filled with lost pet posts and lawn complaints. But tonight it was a battlefield. Half the neighbors praised her for exposing Linda. The other half accused her of destroying the neighborhood's reputation. She scrolled past the comments until she saw a username she didn't recognize. Truth Watcher. The HOA isn't what you think it is. They're covering something bigger. Start with file number 7. Look for the old contracts. Emily froze. She read the message 3 times, then clicked the profile. Account deleted. The next morning, Emily decided to visit the county records office downtown. The same calm determination that had carried her through public humiliation now pushed her forward again. The clerk at the counter, a man in his late 50s with tired eyes, looked up as she approached. "Morning. Can I help you?" "Yes," Emily said. "I'm looking for property and contract records for the Maplewood Homeowners Association." "All documents filed since its creation." He raised a brow. "That's quite a request. Those archives go back to the 1980s. "That's fine," she replied. "I'll wait." After about an hour, he returned with a dusty binder labeled Maplewood HOA, Original Charter and Amendments. Emily opened it carefully. Most of it was typical legal jargon, zoning, maintenance codes, and member dues. But halfway through, she noticed something strange. A section labeled Community Development Partnership Agreement. Inside were signatures, not just HOA board members, but also a construction company called Cole Properties, LLC. Her blood ran cold. "Cole," she whispered. "Linda Cole, the same last name?" The same woman who'd harassed her. She flipped the page. There it was, a clause stating that 5% of all HOA funds would be diverted for community expansion and reinvestment under the supervision of Cole Properties. In other words, Linda had been quietly funneling money to her own company for years. Emily snapped photos of every page. That evening, she called James Turner again. "James, I found proof. Real proof. Linda's been stealing from the community for decades. Are you sure?" he asked. "Signed documents. Public records. She's been laundering HOA funds through her own company." James whistled softly. "Emily, that's criminal fraud." "I know," she said. "And I'm going to expose her again." The next neighborhood meeting was packed, standing room only. Every resident wanted to hear what Emily had to say. Even those who once feared her were now silent, curious, almost reverent. Linda wasn't there. She had taken leave, according to the board's announcement. Emily walked to the front with a folder in her hands. "Before we move on with community updates," she began, her voice steady, "there's something everyone needs to see." She placed photocopies of the contracts on the projector screen. The name Cole Properties LLC glowed across the white wall like a confession written in light. "For years," Emily said, "a portion of our HOA dues, our money, has been funneled into a company owned by Linda Cole. These are the documents. They've been public all along, but no one ever looked." Gasps filled the room. A man stood up. "Are you saying we've been paying her directly?" "Yes, and it gets worse," Emily continued. "This clause right here," she pointed, "allows her to take legal ownership of any unclaimed or foreclosed property in the community. She's been quietly acquiring houses and selling them for profit." The crowd erupted. Shouts, whispers, anger. James Turner's camera crew caught every second. For years, people had accepted Linda's authority, her letters, her rules, her punishments. But now they saw what she truly was. Not a guardian of order, but a thief in a power suit. By the next morning, the news had gone national. HOA president accused of large-scale fraud and property theft. Social media exploded. Emily's story became a symbol of community rebellion, ordinary citizens standing up to small-town corruption. But amidst the chaos, something darker was happening behind the scenes. Emily received another message. "You've done well, but you've only scratched the surface. Cole wasn't working alone. Attached was a file, encrypted, password-protected. James ran a trace on the sender. The signal was untraceable. Whoever this is," he said, "they know a lot more than they should." Emily opened the file with the password. Truth Lives here inside were scanned emails between Linda Cole and several real estate developers. They discussed plans to demolish parts of Maplewood and rebuild it into a luxury housing complex, displacing dozens of families. The HOA had been a front all along, created to slowly pressure homeowners into compliance, fines, and eventual foreclosure. Emily covered her mouth in shock. This wasn't just corruption. It was systematic control. That night, Emily gathered her closest allies, Mrs. Jensen, a few other outspoken neighbors, and James. They met quietly in her living room. "This goes beyond our neighborhood," Emily said. "It's happening in other towns, too. The same developers, the same shell companies." Mrs. Jensen nodded gravely. "We need to go public again." James hesitated. "Emily, if you release this without legal protection, they'll come after you. Hard." Emily's eyes hardened. "They already have." 2 days later, Emily went live again. Not on TV this time, but on her own terms. She streamed from her kitchen table, her voice calm but unwavering. "I was just a homeowner trying to live in peace. But what I've found shows something much bigger. A pattern of control, greed, and manipulation disguised as community management. This isn't about one HOA. It's about a system built to silence people. I won't be silenced anymore." The stream hit 10 million views in a day, but the moment she ended it, she heard the sound of tires screeching outside. She peeked through the blinds. 3 black SUVs parked near her driveway. Her heart pounded. She grabbed her laptop and whispered to Mrs. Jensen, who'd been staying with her for safety, They found us. The front door rattled. Open up! Police! Emily hesitated. Were they really police? Or were they part of something else? The knocking grew louder. Mrs. Jensen whispered, Emily, what do we do? Emily took a deep breath. We keep filming. She hit record. The camera captured the moment the door burst open. Flashlights, uniforms, confusion. A voice shouted, Emily Parker, you're under investigation for data theft. She looked into the lens, not with fear, but defiance. If you're watching this, she said, then you know the truth scares them more than anything. The video cut to black. The fallout. The sirens faded into the distance as Emily's wrists were cuffed behind her back. Blue and red lights danced across the front of her house, the same house she'd once decorated with fairy lights, the same porch where neighbors used to wave. Now it looked like a crime scene. Mrs. Jensen stood on the porch shouting, She didn't do anything wrong. She's the one who uncovered the truth. But the officers didn't even look at her. As they led Emily to the car, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. She looked calm, too calm, almost eerily still, because deep down she knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Inside the station, Emily sat in the interrogation room. Concrete walls, a flickering fluorescent light, and a camera blinking red in the corner. A man in a dark suit entered. Not a uniformed cop, FBI. Ms. Parker, he said, setting a thick file on the table. I'm Special Agent Whitaker. You've stirred up quite a storm. Emily folded her arms. I didn't stir it. I exposed it, he smirked slightly. You exposed something all right, and a lot of powerful people aren't too happy about it. Are you here to charge me? She asked. No, he said after a pause. I'm here to help you understand how deep this really goes. Whitaker opened the file. Inside were photos, maps, financial transfers, building blueprints. Cole Properties, he said, wasn't just a shell company. It's part of a network tied to at least 6 other HOAs across 3 states. They buy land cheap through foreclosure, use HOA fines to drive out residents, then sell to private developers for millions? Emily leaned forward. So everything I said was true? More than true. You just didn't realize who you were dealing with. He pushed another photo toward her, a man in his 60s, slick hair, gray suit. Richard Vance, he's the real owner of Cole Properties. Linda Cole was just the front. Vance sits on the board of multiple housing authorities and has friends in city councils everywhere. Emily clenched her fists. So Linda was just another pawn. Exactly, Whitaker said. And now she's missing. Emily froze. Missing? Disappeared 2 nights ago. Her car was found near Lake Trenton. No body yet, her heart pounded. You think they silenced her? Whitaker's silence was answer enough. For the next 2 hours they talked. Whitaker explained that several federal agencies had been quietly investigating real estate corruption in suburban HOA systems. Emily's video, the viral one, had forced their hand. You exposed them faster than we ever could, he said. But that also made you a target. Emily looked down at her handcuffed wrists. Then why am I the one in here? Whitaker sighed. Optics. The people we're dealing with control headlines, not just homes. That night, Emily was released on conditional bail, Whitaker's doing. As she stepped out of the station, James Turner was waiting by his car, camera in hand. They're calling you the HOA whistleblower, he said with a proud grin. You're trending again, #1 on every platform. Emily smiled weakly. Funny how people love watching someone burn. Until they realize it's for their freedom. James placed a hand on her shoulder. You didn't burn, Emily, you lit a fire. 2 weeks later, a federal investigation into multiple HOAs was officially announced. Dozens of local officials and property developers were named in the probe. Linda Cole's disappearance became headline news, her crimes and corruption exposed in full. But Emily wasn't celebrating. Every day, she received messages from strangers, some offering thanks, others threatening her. You think this is over? One email read, We're rebuilding, and next time we'll do it smarter. Still, she kept pushing. She gave interviews, helped other homeowners organize, even testified at City Hall. Then one morning, while reviewing documents on her porch, she noticed something. A black SUV parked across the street. Windows tinted. Engine running. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop digging, Emily, or you'll end up like Linda. Her breath caught. She scanned the street again. The SUV was gone. Later that night, Emily sat in her kitchen with her laptop open to a new email, this one from Whitaker. We're closing in on Vance, but we need your help. There's a drive you collected during your investigation, blue flash drive labeled HOA records. It contains the key to their offshore accounts. Bring it in tomorrow. She blinked. The flash drive. She hadn't seen it in days. She searched her desk drawers, filing cabinets, even under her couch. Nothing. Then she remembered the night she was arrested. An officer had taken her bag. Someone had the drive. The next day, Emily arrived at the federal building with James by her side. Whitaker met them at the door. You didn't bring the drive? It's gone, she said. Someone took it during the arrest. Whitaker's jaw tightened. That's impossible. All evidence was logged. He stopped mid-sentence, eyes narrowing. Wait here. He vanished down the hall, returning 10 minutes later with a grim look. The logbook was falsified. The officer who processed your bag doesn't exist, James swore under his breath. You're telling me someone infiltrated the arrest? Whitaker nodded. Looks that way. And if they have that drive, they control the narrative again. 3 days later, the news broke. FBI investigation into HOA fraud delayed due to missing evidence. Emily watched the broadcast from her couch, hands trembling. It was happening again. Truth buried by power. That night, she sat outside under the same maple tree where it all began. Her yard lights flickered faintly, the last remnants of her once perfect home. Then she noticed something on the ground. A small, mud-stained object, half buried near the roots. She dug it out. A blue flash drive. Emily's heart stopped. She ran inside, plugged it into her laptop, and opened the folder. Hundreds of files. Bank transfers, emails, offshore accounts. Names she didn't recognize, and some she did. Council members, judges, even developers in other states. She called Whitaker immediately. I found it. Within hours, federal agents swarmed her house again, this time not to arrest her, but to secure the evidence. 6 months later, the case broke wide open. Multiple arrests, asset seizures, national outrage. The Maplewood HOA was dissolved and a new community council was formed, one elected by residents, not corporations. Emily became an unlikely symbol of reform. She never wanted fame, but it found her anyway. At a small ceremony, she received an award for outstanding civic courage. Cameras flashed. People cheered. But Emily's eyes drifted toward the horizon, where construction cranes still towered in distant towns. She knew the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Epilogue. Months later, Emily received a letter in the mail. No return address, just a single sheet of paper. Thank you for finishing what I couldn't. LC. Her breath caught. The initials, Linda Cole. Was it real? Or another manipulation? She'd never know. Emily folded the letter, placed it in her drawer beside the blue flash drive, and whispered, Let them watch. I'm not afraid anymore. As the sun set over Maplewood, the neighborhood glowed softly under warm streetlights. Peaceful again, at least for now, but somewhere far away in another town, another HOA meeting was being called to order, and the cycle was ready to begin again.